Welcome to your introduction to three-dimensional design. Within three-dimensional design, you'll be learning different ways to create sculpture. There are 4 ways that we use to create sculpture. There's the additive process, subtractive, modeling, and casting. And within this PowerPoint, I'll talk about each and every one of those. First thing, though, and foremost, is that you need to know that all sculptors draw. Before we create sculptures, we do mini sketches from different points of view. Even though the final product might be 3D, the sculptor has to be proficient in drawing and painting. This is an example of some drawings done by Henry Moore. He's a famous monumental sculptor from England. And you can see here how he thought about different views of the same sculpture. Because since a sculpture in and of itself has to be seen from multiple sides, you have to consider it from different points of view. So the kind of drawing that most sculptors do is called gesture drawing. And gestural lines indicate action or physical movement. Your eyes follow the active lines as they swirl across a page, or in this case, they swirl across a sculpture of someone who is playing tennis. So here the wire wraps around the form and gives you a sense of action. And not only does it give you a sense of action, but it also, as it wraps around the form, gives you an idea of how thick the arms are versus how thick the body is. It gives you a feeling of the amount of space that this object takes up. Gesture drawing is when you move a drawing medium, in other words, a pencil, quickly over a surface to capture a form or the action of a subject. So for your case, you're going to be doing gesture drawing, and it's going to be drawing that takes up an object, that talks about the space that an object takes up. Relief sculpture versus sculpture in the round. What you see here is an example of relief sculpture. And relief sculpture refers to sculpture that is only viewed from usually one side. It's usually viewed from the front, versus a sculpture in the round that should be seen from all sides. Both of these types of sculpture are traditional. They can be done either way. But usually a relief sculpture has a backing, some type of surface that it projects from. So you can see here how the sculpture on the left from India, even the horse is up against a wall. And this is very high relief. The sculptures are almost completely and utterly sculpted in the round, but parts of it are still attached to a wall. The one in the middle is low relief or bas relief. Very little of the sculpture projects from the background. Some relief sculptures tell a story. This is Ghiberti's Gates of Paradise. They were doors that he created out of bronze from stories in the Bible. An armature is an internal support, and it's often used in sculpture in the round. And it helps to provide weight or volume when you are doing additive process. Now, the additive process is where you take pieces of materials and you glue them together or join them together in some way, and they are modeled or assembled, and the process helps to create a sculpture that is built up. House of Cards is a good example of an additive process. The pictures on the left are done by a female sculptor from the United States. Her name is Louise Nevelson, and she would construct, as you can tell here, using a background, and she would build up these surfaces and then paint them all one color. So it became about the shadows created by the objects. And this is considered a relief sculpture because it does have a background. Casting. Casting is another one of our 3D processes. And this is where a sculptor starts by making a mold, and you can see the mold here on the left, where the artist has made some hands, carved them out of a piece of plaster, and then within the plaster you pour into it another material, a wet material, and you leave it to dry, and then you can pull out the cast. This is an example of a paper cast. So paper can actually be cast, and the mold itself was a piece of fired clay. And when you do paper casting, you would use paper pulp. Carving is another one of our processes, but this is considered the subtractive process. You begin with a block of clay and you subtract a block of marble or a block of plaster, and you subtract until you get the sculpture that you had intended. This is the Pietà by Michelangelo. It is said that he could look at a piece of marble and he could see the actual sculpture inside. These are some more examples of carving. From marble to alabaster to wood, even soap. There's so many other things that you can carve and create sculptures from. Modeling is our last process, is the building up and shaping of soft material to create a sculpture. There's oil-based clay, and that's clay that doesn't have to go into a kiln to be fired. You can also take the oil-based clay and you can cast a bronze from it. You can use wax and sculpt wax and model wax, and that could be used to create a mold and then to pour hot metal into. So modeling a lot of times can be used in conjunction with casting to create sculptures. We also model clay to create sculptures. Last thing is functional sculpture. Functional sculpture is when you create sculpture for a specific purpose. The function dictates the form. This is an urn. This was meant to handle, to hold some kind of precious material. But also, the artist who created this jade urn realized that just because it was meant to hold certain objects, doesn't mean that the outside can't be beautiful. Non-functional sculpture or decorative sculpture is intended just to be viewed and not to be used. So in this module, our 3D module, you'll be using the additive and the modeling techniques. You're going to create textures in clay. You'll create a functional sculpture. You're also going to learn about motif sculpture and to design your own motif. And you will compose a decorative sculpture in paper. So you actually will be creating 2 studio projects for this module.